Alrighty, so as I mentioned before, with the November international break finally comes to an end, and the playoffs finally getting ready to restart it after a couple of weeks of pretty much nothing happening. I want to look at the remaining MLS team and look at who exactly has the biggest pressure to win MLS Cup or even appear in the MLS Cup. Because when you look at these 8 teams, there's no doubt that some teams have a ton of pressure to reach to the final and even win the whole competition. And then there are some teams that they're just happy to be there, and we're not expecting to win their first round matchup and got to that stage. And one of the team that I'll put straight away that were clearly not expected to be in this stage, and they were part of the biggest upset I think we can all agree in MLS history, and that, of course, is Atlanta United. I mean, it's pretty clear that Atlanta has the least pressure out of any of these teams because nobody expected them to make it as far as this. Like in the game against Inter Miami, we all mentioned how it feels like it's just an invitational for them to get absolutely destroyed in that game, and yet, as I said, they against all odds, they somehow pull off a massive upset to a point that, again, not only this Atlanta team is playing house money now, but now they get to play against the team that is really the only reason why they're in this position in the first place. I mean, if they didn't win against Orlando City on decision day, and it pretty much almost everything didn't win right for them, they would not be in this position that they have. And the other thing that's also interesting about this Atlanta team is the fact that this was supposed to be a transitional year, especially in the second half of the season after them selling off all their pieces, firing their head coach, putting interim head coach Rob Valentino in charge. This was supposed to be a transitional kind of time and not a year where you expect Atlanta to really make a run in the playoffs. And the fact that they're able to do so, and I've even made comparison that this team really reminds me of Real Salt Lake a couple of years ago, when remember Real Salt Lake sneak into the playoffs and went on to go all the way to the Western Conference Final on a Cinderella run. It seems like it could be the case, and especially now that they face against Orlando City, a team that they have also had a really good history against. There could be a case that they could actually make it to the Eastern Conference Final, and when they do have to face against one of the New York team, there's also still a chance where they can even beat one of those New York team. Again, the East, it's I would not be surprised if Atlanta not only will continue to shock the world, but they might just outright run all the way to the final, because when you look at the remaining team that remain them, I do think that there's still a chance where the magic will continue and that this team could easily find themselves all the way into MLS Cup. Now at number 7, it's gonna be Minnesota. So yeah, this one's also pretty obvious. I think between them and Atlanta United, these two teams pretty much has the least pressure, and that they're pretty much playing with house money. The only reason why I rank Minnesota a little bit higher than Atlanta in terms of pressure is that heading into that first round matchup against Real Salt Lake, there was maybe kind of that expectation that they should pull off this big upset, and I say maybe because it would still be considered to be an upset, and with the way that Minnesota been pretty much playing house money. And similar to Atlanta, this is supposed to be a transitional year for them. They're not supposed to be this good, especially with all the signings that they made in the summer. Turns out most of them turns out to be a hit. This team pretty much had no expectation heading into the playoffs, except maybe they probably would match up well against RSL. Consider they had more of the momentum compared to RSL, which they did exactly that. Now it's pretty much just this team is completely playing with house money. Now I don't expect this team to beat the Galaxy, even though I did predicted them to beat the Galaxy back in when I fill out the bracket and make it to the Western Conference Final. But honestly, I gotta say, this team, and this is the kind of the thing when it comes to teams that have no pressure whatsoever and aren't just playing for house money. They can play as free as they want. They can play the style that they play and don't have to worry about how, well, if we lose this game, then yeah, it's going to be considered a failure, because we know that both of these teams are going to have a successful season, whether if they get eliminated or even get annihilated in the conference semifinals. So there's no doubt that I'm very proud of what Minnesota has done. This team is way ahead of the schedule. And really, just like how I mentioned, Atlanta is like a comparison to what we saw RSL a couple of making that Cinderella run. I would make the comparison about Minnesota to what we saw New England did back in that COVID shortened season. That was a team that was building a new core coming in with a new head coach, and they made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. So there could be a case that maybe Minnesota can do so, but again, I don't expect them to do so, and that whatever happens from now on, it's considered to be a success. What a job Eric Ramsey and Kelly Ahmed has done to really gone this team way ahead of schedule of what I thought they would be competing in the Western Conference. Now at number six, this is a bit of a controversial one, and the reason why I say it's controversial is because you would expect me to put the Red Bulls a little higher, and I know Red Bulls fan would feel like they should be higher on that list. Consider there's always this pressure that this team should go deep and finally overcome the ultimate curse that this team has had, which is simply they just can't get over the hump whenever they make the playoffs. That so Metro moment always is going to be a theme year after year, and who knows, maybe that's going to continue again, especially in this Hudson River Derby. But I do feel like compared to their inner city rival NYCFC, I don't think the Red Bulls really has as big of a pressure. Considering again, when you look at this team heading into the playoffs, nobody expected that this team was going to do anything. It's similar to Atlanta United. It seems like they're just going to lie down and probably going to get absolutely annihilated by Columbus. But not only the fact that they proven otherwise, but yeah, again, the That's So Metro moment still hasn't happened yet, even though it kind of did in game number three, and yet they somehow do a That's So Metro moment by winning the PK shootout. So yeah, I do think that because of that, yes, there is that pressure of finally getting over the hump. But when you look at this roster, I mean, do you think that they might have had that pressure to do so? I mean, this is still a working progress kind of team. I think there's no doubt that they're gonna get better as the season goes along. But again, compared to the pressure, and this is where I when I did the preview of the Hudson River Derby, talk about the pressure between both of these New York teams, which one has, and even though you would think both teams should be because it's a derby after all, I think NYCFC might have that, and I'll explain why that is the case in just a bit. Then we go to number five, and again, this is another one where I'm pretty sure some fans will feel like they should be higher on this list because anytime when the Seattle Sounders are in the playoffs, there's high expectation of this team, and this season is not none other than that as well. But as I said, just like the Red Bulls, I don't know if they have enough quality where you got to say that yeah, this has got to be the year that they of course have to win MLS Cup. And especially, the Sounders is another team that is kind of, I mean, should you call them kind of going for a bit of a transitional period? I mean, some of the core player that they have is still there, but they are moving on to some of the other core player as well, and especially their star man Pedro de la Vega has really not show up at all in this playoffs or even this season in general as well. I mean, do you think this might be a team that could go really deep? And especially, I know there is that pressure of finally overcoming their ultimate nemesis that is LAFC. They've lost 10 or they lost six in a row against them, have been winless in the last 10 games against LAFC. But I just feel like for me, I don't see the pressure for this Sounders team to really win it all compared to previous Sounders team. I think previous Sounders teams, especially the one that were at their peak of their power, like doing the 2019, 2020, and even in the mid 2010s when they had those trilogy of MLS Cup against Toronto. Those are a team I would expect to have big pressure to perform, but yeah, I don't think this team might is compared to that. But that being said, there's no doubt that, as I said, there is that expectation that Seattle should go deep, and especially there are that expectation that this has to be finally the time where they overcome the ultimate boogeyman of not beating LAFC. Speaking of LAFC, that's where I'm going to put them here. And again, you would think that they should be higher on this list. But I do think that, for LAFC, yes, I know there is that pressure of reaching back to MLS Cup, especially what happened last year, losing out in an MLS Cup. Anytime when you lost an MLS Cup, you would want to get yourself back into it. Although, again, that's easier said to be done. We talked about many times when teams try to go for a revenge tour or redemption tour, that is, and it just does not work out whatsoever. But you got to also remember this is a team that won MLS Cup just 2 years ago. I do think that they do still have that a little bit more leeway that if they don't reach MLS Cup this year, I wouldn't say it's considered to be an epic failure. Even though I know maybe some LAFC fans would disagree, especially the talent that they have within their disposal. But again, I put them up here mainly because again, they will want to get themselves back to MLS Cup, and I know that one trophy is not going to be enough for these LAFC fans to be happy about and consider this season a success. Even though you could maybe argue that even though if they do end up with just one trophy, at least they sort of defeat that narrative of not being able to overcome a cup final, except from the MLS Cup that we saw against the Union. I mean that has always been the narrative. They always show him big cup final like that. Though again, there will also be some LAFC fans will argue, well, yeah, they were playing against a Sporting KC side that they were far superior against that team, and you got to also remember that game it actually took them to extra time to do so. They made it hard on themselves to win that U.S. Open Cup, but still, I mean, at least they overcome that demons of not performing in cup final. Though again, I wouldn't say they have as much pressure as maybe some people might think they should. Then we go to number three, and that of course is NYCFC. So again, the pressure I think for NYCFC compared to why I said the compared to the Red Bulls is I think NYCFC have more pressure because they are the home team and consider their home form has been very good this season. There's that pressure that they have to get the better over the New York team. And when it comes to talent wise, I do think that NYCFC does have a little bit better talent. Yes, the Red Bulls have some good talent on their hand as well. I would argue that between Emil Forsberg and Santi Rodriguez, both of those guys are kind of dead even in terms of talent wise. But just the overall all team as well, I think NYCFC have slightly better talent compared to the Red Bulls as well. And not to mention, this could be Nick Cushing last game as an NYCFC head coach. There's already rumors that he's going to be out of this team, and that it seems like they're another team that is going to be looking for a new head coach, so a new voice and potentially a new structure that will be put in place. There is that pressure of them potentially winning MLS Cup and getting back to that stage. But like what I also said about LAFC, I wouldn't say the pressure is absolutely exorbitant. Consider this is also a team that won MLS Cup not that recent, not that far before, but still, there's no doubt that there's always pressure for this NYCFC team to develop, and especially with this good young core that they've developed, they feel like maybe this could be the year to do so, especially with the teams that is currently with all the team that is currently in the East. That when you look at all these teams, they're almost even pegging in terms of potentially reaching to MLS Cup. Now at number two, even though I said they're even pegging, I think out of all these teams, that is probably the strongest. Out of them is no doubt Orlando City. And actually, let me just write the full name of it because I've been writing full names for the other team, except for the acronym that I usually put with LAFC and NYCFC. Yeah. For Orlando City, there is massive pressure. This playoff, they are probably the best team right now left in the Eastern Conference right now, and especially we talk about this Orlando City side making the playoffs for the past couple of years. Even though that's great to see, now the expectation has to be they have to go deeper. They have failed to get past the second round of the playoffs in their last two playoff appearances. In fact, last year I don't think they even made even well actually last year they did made it to the second round, but they falter against Columbus and the eventual MLS Cup winner. But now, especially with the way that they do have the home field advantage for the rest of the playoffs, at least up to MLS Cup that is, and they are the highest seed remain and probably have the most talent compared to all the rest of the team in the East. This has to be the chance for Orlando City to capitalize. Or else this could be similar to what we saw with Sporting KC a couple of years ago. And I made that comparison because Sporting KC, I mean, remember a couple of years where some of the team were faltering in the Western Conference as well. Sporting KC was one of probably the best team remain out there. And they end up losing to Real Salt Lake. And yeah, that didn't quite go well for them. That was a huge missed opportunity Orlando City would not want to fall in that same fave. Especially, I think the other thing that is a little concern for Orlando City is that they haven't really been playing very well in this playoffs. Though partly that's because they were playing against Charlotte, a team that I said that series was kind of neck and neck, and that was probably the worst possible team that Orlando City could have played in the first round. But yeah, they somehow survive and just barely survive getting into the second round. And again, the talent is definitely there. And the other thing that is maybe concerned is their home form is not very good, but still, you got to say that this is why when they're at it, this is probably the most talented team remaining in the Eastern Conference, and this has to be it for them to try to make a deep run or go all the way to MLS Cup again, and not to mention also defeat that narrative that they can't beat Atlanta United. I mean, Atlanta, even though Orlando City has gone a couple wins over Atlanta, Atlanta still has the upper hand in terms of these all time meeting, and that yeah, Orlando would want to defeat that narrative too. And the last thing they want is to see Atlanta continue to own them and call them the fodder of this rivalry as we see before. When Atlanta was at its peak, and Orlando was definitely not at its peak. And then number one, the team that probably has the most pressure to win MLS Cup, or at least reach MLS Cup, it's got to be the LA Galaxy. So obviously the pressure is definitely there because we know that every time when the Galaxy make it to the playoffs, it doesn't matter if this team is ready or not in the playoffs. There's expectation that they need to go deep. But especially when you look at this team, and as I mentioned, when you look at right now the remaining field, I think the two LA teams are probably the strongest remain out there. But the reason why I put the Galaxy with way more pressure than LAFC is that if we're gonna have a collision course in the Western Conference Final between these two LA team and we're gonna have an El Trafico in the Western Conference Final, the Galaxy has a lot of pressure to win that one, even if it's a road game for them. The pressure is definitely there because this has to be the year that they gotta overcome that narrative in the past that they can't beat LAFC in a big game like that. And imagine if they lose for the third time in recent memories to LAFC in the playoffs. Like that's got to be absolutely excruciating. And not to mention when you look at this Galaxy team, if it wasn't for them having bad some decision day collapse late in the season. This team probably might be rivaling LAFC as the best team right now in the Western Conference. This attack is probably the best right now out of any remaining 8 teams that it is in the playoffs right now. So yeah, there's no doubt that this is a team that there's a lot of pressure that they have to win MLS Cup, getting themselves back to the glory days of what the Galaxy is all about. And also, not to mention, out of all the 8 teams that is remaining in the playoffs, the Galaxy have been by far the best team so far in the playoffs. And I know, yes, they were playing against Colorado, and I know Colorado is not a very good team, but the fact that they absolutely destroy them like that, and how that front three has just been humming being in a sound and the Killer Bees are at their best, there's got to be a lot of pressure that this has to be the time for the Galaxy to capitalize. And if they do play against LAFC, it is on them to finally defeat LAFC, because if they don't do so against LAFC, they're going to look back at that decision they collapse that they had against Houston as maybe one of the reasons why they weren't able to beat, because playing in El Trafico at BMO Stadium compared to Dignity Health Sports Park, it's a huge difference. I would have given the Galaxy more chance if this was at Dignity Health Sports Park compared to being at BMO Stadium. But still, despite that, with the way that the Galaxy needs to overcome past narrative, unable to overcome their neighbor, and with the talent that they had, this has to be the year that they win MLS Cup. Well, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and let me know in the comments below, do you agree with this? By the way, there was also an article on the MLS website. I think Sam Jones wrote that article talking about which remaining MLS team have the biggest pressure, or was it Andrew Wiebe, the one that wrote the article? I couldn't remember which editor that wrote it, but it's on the league website. You can check it out as well. Obviously, the rankings that I put here is completely different to what that article is, because I have different opinions of what I think has the who has the biggest pressure win MLS Cup this year. But let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.